Hello everybody. Hello, beautiful family. Oh my gosh, long time no see, huh? Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Cosmic Metamorphosis channel. My name is Kat. Um, wow. Okay, we are in the last week of March. I think the last time I did a video was middle of February, so I know a lot of you say don't say you're sorry, but I still feel like I should apologize. But I have been working extra hours. Just haven't had the time. I've heard other people say like literally they just feel like the day goes by so fast that before you know it, like you're going to bed, then you're waking up, you're going back to work. Like the days are going by so fast. I literally don't have time to sit and transcribe anymore, I feel like, because I I'm supposed to be to work at 7. I get off at 4 in the afternoon. By the time I get home, the minute I pull in my driveway, my um, kitty cat that I adopted from outside, she knows the sound of my car, so she comes running. The minute I open my car door, she jumps in my lap. And then so I have to spend like half an hour just kind of hanging out with her. And then I come in, I cook dinner, before I don't even know why dinner should even take that long. Before I know it, like dinner's like at 7 o'clock. And then I'm like, crap, like it's time to like get prepared to like chill out for myself and then maybe do 10 minutes of transcribing, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then like I have to go to bed to wake up to go to work the next day. So time is definitely speeding up. That is for sure. Um, I've tried a new product. It's not a promo, but I wanted to try something for my hair, and I've been trying to go more natural and everything. But there's this fermented rice bar that's called Viore. I don't know if y'all have heard of that. If you could see that, Viore. This is just shows the conditioning bar, but I bought the shampoo. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. It takes about a week to really like get everything out of your hair, but my hair is so voluminous. Like you can't see it because I have my hair pulled up from the sides, but it is so voluminous now. I'm like, it's almost too much. It's almost too much. So, especially as we get older and you start kind of losing your hair and stuff, like I feel like it's really helped. The conditioning bar, I don't really care for too much because it does kind of, it does make it a little bit kind of, I don't know, not really oily, but you can go maybe 2 days and then you have to wash your hair again. But I just love the shampoo bar. They're really cool. And they come in all different scents. I got a citrus one. And then they have like tea tree, they have regular, all that. So they're a little pricey, but they last a while. So if you're interested, try that. I also, look what I got. The Encyclopedia Galactica from Elena Denan. I got the hard copy because I wanted the color photos. So, oh my gosh, it is remarkable, you guys. It is, holy moly. I mean, some of these characters, some of these, look at this. Look at this. Is that just, oh my gosh. It was done really, I mean, really well. The book was done really well. I mean, it's incredible, and I'm kind of reading through it when I have time. But I mean, look at these. I know she's got the explanations where they come from, all that. But yeah, all of the pictures are just incredible, incredible. Look at, isn't that cool? Oh wow. I mean, it's great. That's a hardback book, and that was worth $40. So yeah, I'm reading through that right now, but I have lots of changes in my life. I just want to let you know before we get started. We're doing Alex Collier's September 8th webinar, which is his 191 from 2023. So I apologize. I am so far behind. in those. But then again, you know, if I do something up to date, then I feel like I'm maybe taking information from him. But a lot of the information he does share, as I've said before, does still relate to the current times. So I'm still going to do those. Anyway, I wanted to let you know I have been a major change in my life. So, a few weeks ago, it's been almost 3 weeks, my husband lost his job. So, um, he's been really stressed out, really worried money wise, because of course, everything right now is so expensive for everybody. It's not a good time. I'm only making $1,000 a month, and I work full time because of the credit card wage garnishment that they've been taking out of my check. And if you have followed me from, a couple of years ago, um, the judge judged against me on a credit card that wasn't even mine. He didn't even ask for proof. I won't go into all the details, but they take $500 a month out of my check, and then I have to pay for benefits for me and my son, that's 400. So basically, I'm getting paid half. I'm working 2 weeks for free, basically. So, um, I know this happened for a reason because we've been meaning to move for a long time, and I've been trying to get out of where we are into a better place. I am looking at Colorado, so um, thank God my husband is VA approved, so he's getting a lot of his medical done through them. So thank God for that. And he does get a little bit of disability money through them. Thank God for that. Um, but he's had a little bit of savings set aside, and he just had to call and cash out his 401k so we can survive and pay our mortgage and pay, all the bills and stuff. So major life changes, and he was really upset that it happened to him, but I feel like this is a sign, and it's a good sign that like it's time to move on. So yeah, I have been looking at Colorado, and I've been looking at that for a long time. That's where my dad lived before he passed away. I do have family in Grand Junction, but I don't think I want to be around Grand Junction. I'm looking more anywhere from Colorado Springs on up through Denver, Boulder, like anywhere around there. Hey, and Alex is there, right? But anyway, I'm looking into that. I'm hoping at work that I get a promotion, um, but things aren't really moving in the direction we all want at work. So I had my assistant manager tell my district manager if they were to let some people go, she did say that she gave her my name for promotion. So that would be absolutely wonderful. But I'll probably have to transfer within my job as well to a new location. So I have to get my house ready to sell. And that's going to take a lot of time. My husband has to get his knee fixed um, through VA too. So, like, we're looking about 5, 6 months, but I keep telling him we need to get out of here before the winter. So, we'll see what happens. So that is my life. I hope you all are doing okay, you guys. Like, one way or another, like, we always find a way to like survive. It just feels like these times are getting more and more stressful and just more and more overwhelming, and information is coming out more and more and more and more every day, and we're having to tighten our belts even more, and I'm like, I can't tighten my belt any more possibly than I have right now. Like, there's just no way. So I just try to live in the moment, like I've said before in every one of my videos. You just have to take it day by day. And yeah, let me turn this up. Sorry. You just have to take it day by day and just do all you can. Like, that's all you can do, or it does get overwhelming. And that's something I find funny that, like, in this webinar, Alex talks about at the end. You just got to take it one day at a time, or we would all lose our minds, I think. So, anyway, let's get on with this. I might get banned for this video, though he talks about some stuff. So this is Alex Collier's webinar 191 from September 8th of 2023. He says, you know, it's no secret I haven't put a lot of energy into astrology. And of course, over the years, I've shared the A's perspective on it. But of course, in their fifth density, he says, but not in third. He says, you know, I've heard about Mercury retrograde for decades. He says, this week I became a believer in Mercury retrograde. He says, my week has sucked. And he just laughs. He says, it has absolutely been a disaster. And no matter what I try to do, no matter how many fingers, he says, I put in the dam, he says, none of it helped. I hate Mercury retrograde too. That every time it's in, I get screwed too. I don't know. I hate it. Hate it. He says, hi, everybody. Welcome to 191. And obviously, we have some cleanup to do on the proposed new theme song. Apparently, they're going to have a new theme song during the webinar. I've never been able to catch a live webinar because I'm always working on Fridays. So, and he just laughs. He says, listen, I'm going to talk about current stat and the three paradigms of space. Not sure he ever did in this one. Oh, well. He says, but I need to share something with you, and there's a lot of other things to talk about. He says, my week started Sunday morning with a phone call. He says, 2 phone calls from 2 different fraud divisions from Wells Fargo. He says, my bank, and both of them were talking to me about how my checking account had been hacked. And then I got a call from PayPal. My PayPal account had been hacked. He says, now I use PayPal as a sweep account. Which, if any of you have listened to my previous videos, the sweep account, he talks about that and explains how that's like the account you move all your money into just to pay your bills, I believe. He says, anyway, all of you really need to pay attention to your accounts because hackers, you know, says it's just amazing. But anyways, they got $4,901 from me, which is almost what I made from last month. And it came across as the Azad, A-Z-A-D brothers out of Istanbul, Turkey. He says, those are where the servers are. And because I don't expose my Wells Fargo account to anything, he says, I use the PayPal as a sweep account and I just move monies. And I use the PayPal. He says, anyways, they were able to find everything according to Wells Fargo. One of the Wells Fargo fraud groups, according to them, he says, I was being targeted. So there may be others, and I know that other people in this movement are having a very difficult time. They're being attacked and hacked and so on and so forth. So it's getting really, really interesting, he says, and I just bring that to your attention because I don't know how they're getting this information. I don't know how they're doing it. It's just insane. And it happens like this, he says. He says, you know, I'm not asking for anybody to do anything, but be sure to protect yourselves because they're getting really, really good at this. They're getting really, really good. And it could be that they realize that especially it's a hacking cartel. They realize the new quantum system is coming in and this type of work, he says, they will not be able to do anymore. I love it. So they're pulling out all the stops and they're going after anyone and anything that they can get their hands on. So please be mindful. It says, okay, Professor Arnie Burkhardt, a German pathologist, who's one of the leading pathologists in all of Europe, has just posted a video, and he has come right out and said spike protein. Those who got the special, especially the boosters, that the spike protein is in every organ. It's in every organ, and when it comes to men, it has in fact replaced the sperm in most men that got the shots, and so on and so forth. And he literally says out loud that if you're a woman and you want to have children, you should very seriously consider not having sex with a man or with any male that's had the, says, we've talked about this very briefly in the past, but now it's science. Okay, so FYI in that, he said. We're going to get to that in a second. There's a lot of chatter about Project Bluebeam. Yes, it does exist. It says, yes, they have perfected the technology. Whether or not they use it or are allowed to use it, or the white hats use it, is something entirely different. So we just don't know. But I want you to know that it is very, very real. He says the discussion regarding climate change, he says, is still raging. But there's something you really need to be aware of. The winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for Physics in 2022, a gentleman by the name of John Clauser, has taken his knowledge and his expertise and ability to grasp multiple concepts, and he has totally dove into the climate change issue. Now he says that that he's been doing this for years. But this last year, he's really gone into it. And what's really interesting are his conclusions. There are at least 43 or 44 different peer reports on the climate. None of them agree with each other. But what's interesting is the only thing they have in common is cloud cover. None of them in any of these studies factor in cloud cover in each of these reports. There are no clouds ever at any time on the Earth, in the Earth's atmosphere. Now, cloud cover is responsible for 30 to 60% of Earth's climate, okay? You can't just erase it. And whether humanity was on this planet or not, the Earth would have cloud cover. She produces it all of the environmental attributes and elements create cloud cover, which brings in rain, which is moisture, evaporation, etc. This is all part of the process of our ecosystem. He says, well, all these climate reports, all of them, there are no clouds ever in the sky. Okay? So what does that tell you? Blue beam? When we look at those clouds out there and we're like, wow, that just looks so painted like a picture. Huh. Said so. All of these climate change reports are fucking bogus. He says they're absolute garbage. He says, ladies and gentlemen, so there's no point in even getting involved or having these discussions because they're all faulty. Okay? That's John Clauser, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for Physics in 2022, and he did an interview. It's very, very good, and I'm sure you can find it. And I want to thank Lady Eve for sharing that with me. He says, fascinating. He says it's fascinating how the system totally twists information, totally manipulates information, and then force feeds it to humanity as science, as bona fide, because they realize we're so busy trying to survive the cluster, the shit that they've created for us, this disaster of politics, that we don't have time to do all this research. Bastards. But what they do is they force feed it down our throats. They teach our kids these fake science reports, and then the kids come home and they get all upset and they get all excited about it, and it's just garbage. He says it's garbage science. Now, this also brings up another point: the press, the media. You know, the reasons that the founding fathers added freedom of the press in the First Amendment, along with free speech, is because they were under the assumption that in order to protect the people from its government, from the bureaucracy, that giving the press the power to print whatever it needed to print without being censored, whether we liked it or not, was very important because they realized that the members of the press were also citizens. Um, they also realized that in protecting the citizens, they were also protecting themselves because they were a part of the citizenship of the United States, of the populace, and that therefore it was their job to police what the bureaucracy was doing. They, for some reason, did not ever foresee that the press would actually become an arm or an extension of the bureaucracy and or one political party or both political parties. And so that they themselves, the press, would no longer become part of the citizenship, but because part of the elite mechanism of the bureaucracy of the government. It says, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I have no idea where these videos go or these webinars. I also know that it's already being bootlegged live as we speak because people just don't give a shit. He says, they want what they want and they don't care who they hurt. So to those of you that are listening, we literally cannot believe what the press tells us. Literally cannot. I think it's imperative, and I've been saying this for years, that whatever they tell us, we believe the exact opposite. Absolutely. Because they are no longer members of society. They have become elite and they bought into or have been paid to feed us lies and feed us disinformation. And one of the biggest lies that we have now, or one of the several, is that climate change is real. It is not. A harp has been manipulating the weather. It says, well, there's 8 harps on the planet. They have been manipulating the weather. The 2020 election was not stolen. That's the other lie. It was stolen. And that COVID is real. Okay. Have you noticed that the flu has just disappeared? There is no longer a flu. Now, it's not that Khufu cured the flu. It's the fact that the flu has been called and is now being called Khufu. Okay, that's what it is. He says, now we know that whomever is trying to reintroduce another pandemic, another scandemic, there's some things you need to know about it. The first one, okay. He says the pharmaceutical companies paid the hospitals and the clinics and those that were giving the free tests were all getting money. When they came back with a positive for the flu test and they were sent to the hospital, if you were hospitalized, if you were admitted with this finding of being positive, the hospitals got bonus money, big money, tens and thousands of dollars for just admitting you. Once you were in the hospital, they were very rigid protocols at the hospitals were to run to make sure that the families knew as little as possible. You know that because my husband had his gallbladder surgery during that time and I couldn't go in there to be with him at all. If you were an elderly person and you're on Medicaid or Medicare, what's interesting is that the Center for Medicaid or Medicare Services, they were waiving patients' rights if you were admitted into this hospital. This information that's only coming out now, they were waiving your rights without your consent so that the hospitals could do whatever they wanted, okay? I'm pretty sure, and I have to question when my husband was in there, he had a lot of these tests for that because they made you do that before an operation or going in the hospital. He had at least 8, 9 of them. Okay, his brain did not function the same. I'm telling you, his brain, yeah, a lot of his memory is like gone. Um, but who the hell knows if they didn't give him a shot while he was in there, while he was out. I almost want to like request all of his records from that time and like take a look at them because we have no idea. No idea. Um, says I'm sharing this information with you because you know what they've cooked up now that's coming. He says, so you need to be aware of what the process is. And I'm just gonna say this it's all about the money. It's all about the money. It is. And it's not even in human medical, it's also in the veterinarian offices. They're the same thing. I've had so many animals in at the vet the last few years, and I've lost several of my cats that in the amount that they charge you, and then they don't even want to see you unless all your shots are up to date with them. And I refuse to give my animals anymore. Uh, you know, I refuse it. So yeah, I got threatened with one of my vets that said that they wouldn't take care of my animals if I didn't start like doing this. And I'm like, okay, I'll just find another vet then. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Ugh, it pisses me off. God, it pisses me off. So the center, he says, for Medicaid and Medicare were waiving patients' rights. The doctors and the clinics were getting money and bonuses for offering the free KUFU tests. He says you got a bonus payment if the patient was diagnosed with KUFU, and the hospital also gets a huge payment if the patient is admitted to the hospital with KUFU. The hospital then gets another bonus payment if they put the patient on remdesivir. The hospital would then get another bonus if the patient is put on a medical ventilator. Then the hospital would get an additional 20% bonus if the patient passes and on their death certificate, whether they expired with or because of the KUFU, or for any other reason. It could be a car accident, hit by a bus. He says it could have been anything. But if the hospital put on their death certificate died of kufufu, they were given an additional 20% bonus on all other money that they got. Fucking disgusting. Fucking that shit pisses me off. Pisses me off so bad. I'm so tired of fighting with medical bills too. Like where the fuck do they find these people that do the coding on these billing? All of my adult life, I have been having to call on bills because things have been coded improperly. Or last one I just got, they billed the wrong insurance. I was taken off my husband's. I was put on my own. Thank God for that. But they billed the wrong fucking insurance. Oh my God. I am so tired of dealing with this medical system. I am so I'm livid. Don't even get me started. Oh my God. Um, is that each KUFU patient that was admitted to a hospital, the money value of the patient to the hospital became anywhere between 100,000 and $250,000. Bastards. For that patient. That's what the hospital was guaranteed in bonus money. It says, now, I want you to think about this. The system was paying the medical professionals to expire you, to expire us. It was in their benefit to do this. Now, I'm not saying every hospital did this or every doctor did this, but the incentives were not there to save the patient no matter what. We have to be clear about what we are dealing with. This is current stat. We have to be clear with what we are dealing with. You know, and let me tell you this. What pisses me off is people that do shit just for money and fuck their fellow people. Okay. I work in an environment, they hired a manager. She's very nice, but she's a little like doesn't know what to do. She should not be in that position. And we're always told we don't have enough hours, we don't have enough hours, we don't have enough hours to give people. And there's only a handful of us that are ever in that store. When we can use extra help, when we don't have the help. And then a couple of the other managers found out, like, literally we had 60 hours to give one day or 1 week, okay, for doing truck freight and stuff. And we only used a small portion of that. We're supposed to have almost 2 hours a day just to help clean the store. No one's scheduled for that. So we're losing hours. And the fact of that is, like in retail, when you're a manager, if you're below your payroll, you get a bonus for that. Now, if you're severely under, then you get penalized. But if you if you stay below your payroll, you get a bonus. So the rest of the workers are being screwed over because we could use more people to help and to help the customers in the store. But they're walking away with a fucking bonus check. All for money. It's all for money. And that shit pisses me off. Pisses me off. I can't take it. Upsets me. Okay, sorry. I'm on a rant today too. Alex says, Maui, the Maui situation, we have to be clear with what we are dealing with. It was an attack by our own, on our own. He says, Ukraine taking the resources we have in this country and putting it overseas, where 2/3 of it is ending up being sold on the black market. He says that's a fact. We know that. Okay, he says that's a fact. He says, now, the press should be, if they had any integrity whatsoever, should have been all over this. But they're not. Instead, they're supporting the system. Of course they are. They're supporting the system. He says, now, I want you to tell me, and to further expand on the system, I want you to tell me this is the NBA or the NFL. Okay, NBA is National Basketball Association, NFL is the National Football League. 36 members of either of these organizations have been arrested for domestic violence. 7 for fraud, 19 for writing bad checks, 117 for bankrupting at least 2 businesses. 3 have done prison time for assault. 71 can't get a credit card because their credit card is so bad, or their credit score, I guess, so bad. 14 were arrested on drug-related charges. 8 were arrested for shoplifting. It says 21 are defendants in lawsuits, and 84 in the last 14 months have been arrested for drunk driving. He says, now I said to you, is that the NBA or the NFL? He says, ladies and gentlemen, that is our members of Congress. All these numbers I just shared with you, these are members of Congress. Right now representing us, the people. That's how bad this whole system is. And I'm sharing this with you because the hammer's about to drop. We're about to move into martial law. So this has been since September. It's not. I seriously think we're going to drag this shit out until the end of the year. I do. Unfortunately. No one knows the date. They're never going to telegraph it, okay? He says, and I hear all the conjectures. It's going to happen. When it's going to happen, and the best thing everyone can do is to get your house in order. Get what you need, get some cash on hand, whatever that is that you can do for yourself and your families, because when this happens, our reality changes, okay? And I've said that, it changes just like that. They came in with COVID, put themselves on the news, and within 2 minutes, our world changed that quickly, and it's going to happen again. He says, and it will not be the same. We have not been in martial law since the Civil War, and there were only 35 states then, okay? And can you believe we're going on the 5th year? This is the 5th year of this shit. I I just can't believe it. He says it's a whole new world when that happens. And what we look like on the other side of that is what we have to create. We, the people. Okay? It's our responsibility. It's not the military. Now, don't get me wrong. He says, I love these guys. Absolutely. Every man and woman who's out there doing this, like police officers, he says, man, they're awesome. Excuse me. They're incredible human beings who are putting themselves between us and danger. But it is not their job to run a country. Do you understand? If you look at the history of the world where those things have occurred, it doesn't end well for the people either. Okay? We, the people, have to be ready to move to make things right, to rebuild this country, and it has to start at a local level. It has to start at a local level and then a state level, and then from a state level back to the federal government level, the way it was created in the first place, using the original organic constitution of the United States. And I've said this from the beginning that it's going to take people on the streets here, like there is in Europe. The people have to wake up and demand that change happen. We have to. We have to. That's why it's taken so long to get to the point, because we're being spoon fed, spoon fed, spoon fed until people get pissed off enough to say fucking no more. He says, because this is our country. These citizens, these military men and women, they're our sons and daughters. They're our neighbors. They're friends of our kids who went to high school or college together, okay? He says, we have to do this. We're not a republic if we're in martial law. And the reason they created a Republican Constitution is because the founding fathers, and all you have to do is read the Federalist Papers. They couldn't stand a democracy because in a democracy, 51% of the population tells the other 49% what to do, and the 49% have no rights. In a constitutional republic, regardless of where you stand on whatever issue it is, you had individual liberties. Now we've lost those individual liberties because the system we currently have chipped away our protectors the guardians of our rights. The media sold us out completely, so we have to clean house. We have to totally clean house. He says, America needs a colonic. He says, big time, maybe several colonics to get rid of all this shit. Says that we've had to deal with. Says now, as we are doing this, as we are rebuilding, we are going to be given information from the White Hats, from the Alliance of Nations, history. Each country is going to be given information regarding their own country, of the corruption, the dark, very dark side. It says, I don't know if we'll all get all the dark side, but the dark side of what has transpired, and as we continue to learn of these things, we are going to have to adjust on the fly to not only express our grief, our anger, our frustration, etc., but we're also on the fly going to have to compensate and adjust to make sure these things that we learned about are fixed and cannot occur again. And this means we're all going to have to dialogue with each other, not only in our local communities, but state by state to state, county by county by county, region by region by region, province, around the world with each other, excuse me, to create something that is not only sustainable, but where we, the people, will remain in control. This has to happen, and we are on the doorstep of this. This absolutely has to happen, and we have to fill that void, that vacuum that's going to be created by the deep state being removed and just flushed down the toilet. We have to fill that gap, and we have to fill the gap with honor, with integrity, with love for self and for humanity. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is just as much about frequency as it is respect. In order for humanity to survive, in order for humanity to not go through this type of scenario again, in order for humanity to avoid in any way, shape, or form the extinction of itself by the governments they created, we, the people, have to remain in control. So we have to rethink what's already occurred. We have to completely rethink it, and we have to find common ground. Somewhere we have to find common ground, and we have to be sure to be crystal clear about what our agenda is here and what it is, and that is the protection and the sovereignty of all human life on this planet and other things, becoming stewards of the environment, of the planet herself, of wildlife. There is a way to do all this. Other nations have done it in our past, which has been mostly scrubbed. Other civilizations that no longer exist have been able to do these things to some very satisfactory level. He says, and again, that's all part of the disclosure. He says, who were these civilizations, especially Tartaria? There's a really good YouTube channel. It's called Autodidactic, AUTODID. I forget. Anyway, it's an Australian guy by the name of Campbell, and I love him. I found him through JCK Quantum Truths. She's changed a little bit lately, but I love his channel, and he has fabulous information about the old world buildings. It's amazing. I'll try and put a link in here so you guys can go check out some of the videos. The pictures that he's found, I mean, yeah, there definitely was an old civilization and it got scrubbed. The mud floods came in. They just completely tried to scrub history. And yeah, his information's great. So he says, Alex says, how did they acquire it? What did they do? How were they more advanced than we are today? How did they achieve this? These are all things that have been hidden from us and stripped away from our consciousness. And then, of course, there's a future of humanity, which has got to be a priority, and that's the kids. So that's the other thing about the Tartaria and the old world buildings is when they say it was founded by this date, it was founded on this date, like that's what's coming out is that it actually, that's true. It was found, it wasn't built because there's no pictures of these buildings being built. No one can find any. So somebody found these buildings and just took them over. The church was one of them. They took a lot of these buildings. Why do you think you see the windows in geometric patterns and everything has to do with frequency? The church took over lots of these buildings that were used for healing. Okay, why do you think they got rid of all the bells all over the world? They claimed it was for the war that needed the steel or whatever. Like, that's a lie. Bells were used for frequencies and healing people. So we're finding out all this stuff, okay? Alex says, gotta be the priority. So whatever we do isn't just for the moment, okay? We look back at the past, we review the past, even that which we don't know yet. We review the past, we bring all that knowledge, all that work to the present. We project ourselves into the future. What does that look like? He says the Native Americans and other indigenous tribes, they would try to project all of the decisions they made 7 generations ahead. We need to go back to this and do the very best we can, and maybe even use some technology. If we're allowed to project ourselves into the future, 7 generations, to try to see what the world would look like, what it would look like, and the decisions we make today, what would that look like 7 generations from now, or 5 or 6? He says, whatever that number is that's achievable. And we project ourselves into that, and we take what we think we know back here and we try to implement it into the present, which is where we are, is in the present. This is where the work is. This is where we have to figure it out. And this is just not vintage generations. This is all generations. We have a lot of young people who are irresponsible, not dependable, don't listen, are addicted to technology. They have to be brought on board, no matter how hard it is, no matter how extensive our patience has to be. We have got to get these kids somehow, some way to buy into the fact that we are helping them build their future, because at some point in the future, they take over. They are us. They become the vintage. So they have to be read into everything that's going on. And I know how hard that is, because right now they're not listening. Nothing's going to happen. You're a conspiracy theorist. He says, oh, they'd never lie to us, yada, 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 yada. Okay? When in fact, that's mostly all they do is lie to us about everything. Now, one of the big chief things is of cause outside of rebuilding the structures of our community, is sadly evolving around money, currency issues. How do we do this? Now, we only know the system we've been living in for the last 100+ years, okay? That's basically all we know. Historians know about a time before that, but they didn't actually live it themselves, okay? So they only know about it. They don't actually know it because they didn't live it. He says so, but the knowledge is useful, so we have to be open to discussing this issue as well. Now, I bring this up because our currency system is in the mode of changing. He says we don't know exactly when it's going to flip. Again, there's all these conjectures, all these predictions. Nobody knows for sure. Everybody's watching the BRICS nations because they appear to be on point and they appear to be resolute in changing the system. It says now, what Americans need to realize is that the rest of the world wants to move away from the Federal Reserve note. That is a private currency. That currency does not represent the United States Treasury or the citizens of this country. Okay. Point of fact, the Federal Reserve Act gave a private banking cartel all the control of our nation's currency, and they have raped and pillaged and hid behind us and our military ever since. Bastards. Bastards. Terrible, terrible things have been done to other countries around the world in the name of the United States. Most citizens have absolutely no idea. Now, ignorance is not an excuse. We should have known. We should have been paying attention. But we weren't. And then once the school system started teaching false economic principles, we lost control. But the information has always been there, that the Fed was a private banking cartel. That information was always there. So moving forward, we have to be sure that our children and our children's children's children are fully and completely understand our economic system and what that actually looks like and how that turns out to be. Okay? It says it's many extraterrestrial civilizations practice what they call the law of consistence. Whatever we know now, our children are taught what we know now, because we want our children to be inheritors of the future, to know just as much as we do, if not more. And the purpose for that is because they are the inheritors of our future. This keeps our civilization going, moving forward. Oh, doesn't that make sense? That makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? Huh. Oh, no. Let's dumb our kids down. This is something we must implement on planet Earth to make sure that our children's are not only on board, but are smarter and brighter than we are moving forward. Absolutely. There was a lot of talk about the BRICS nations and gold-backed currency systems. It is a foregone conclusion that some of these new currency systems, these asset-backed currency systems, are going to be digital. It's just a foregone conclusion. It says, now, this is coming. It says this is coming. There is a video of a crane operator talking to a construction worker, and this construction worker that was working on the border wall in Texas, and the crane operator says, "You're rebuilding the wall?" And he goes, "I thought Biden took all of the money." And the construction worker said, "No, now Mexico is paying to rebuild this wall." And he goes, "Mexico?" And the worker said, "Yes, Mexico is building the wall because they know that the dollar is going to collapse and they don't want the people that crossed over here to cross back into Mexico." Did you hear what I just said? Mexico doesn't want the people that came here from other third world countries in Central America to cross back into Mexico when the US dollar collapses. This is where we're at, folks. He says this is real life. This is the deal, okay? This doesn't mean this is the end of the world. That's not what I'm telling you, okay? But we got to keep this shit real. We really do. These are things and obstacles that we, the people, are going to have to solve, especially in our communities. He says, all right, the military can't do it all. It's not possible. Law enforcement cannot do it all. But we, the people, will resolve and earnest intent with a love for country. We can do it. We can do the right things. Because when push comes to shove, we always do. We always do the right thing. We are the most honorable and charitable country on the planet. There is no reason we cannot do this right. But many of these people that came over here, they need to go home. They do, because they're not an asset to this country, and they never will be. They're vampires. All they want to do is feed off the labor of others, and America can't survive that. America should never do that. America was never meant to be that. People came over here and whacked their way through the wilderness, bearing their children along the way, trying to create a life for themselves. And why did they want to come to America from all over the world? Because those other countries were controlled and managed by a monarchy where the people were livestock. They had no rights, they had no say, and unless you were blessed by the king or the queen, you had no property rights. So they came here thinking this might be a way for us to have a more promising life, to create something for ourselves and for our children and future generations. That's how we used to think. There's an excellent interview done by John Dowling and Nicholas, he can pronounce his last name, Nicholas Vinyamin, entitled Currency RV Gold Standard. It's really, really good. And Mr. Dowling explains the revaluation process, what it really looks like. Also, why am I bringing this up? It says the chief technology officer for Ripple, David Schwartz, made a statement that he believes that in the future, the XRP could emerge as the world's reserve currency. Now, how they're pitching this to us is it's a platform in order for payments to be made, okay? Why would we take another private corporation and allow them to become printers of currency, private corporation, become a currency, and allow it to become a world reserve currency? It says, haven't we just gone through something like that? Yeah. History, the past continues to repeat itself if you don't learn the lessons. Now, I think temporarily XRP would be a good platform in order for countries to exchange between country and country, because we're talking about money in the hundreds of millions and the hundreds of trillions. It says, but making it a reserve currency, no. That is very, very dangerous predicament to put humanity in once again, because who controls it? Who controls the stock of XRP? Who owns the most amount of stock of XRP, of Ripple? Okay, it's the same thing all over again. We have to be mindful of this. Ultimately, the goal should be, how can we learn to live together and live prosperous, oh my God, I can't talk either today. Prosperously without money. How do we do this without money? Now I realize that most of us on this planet haven't got a clue about that because we don't know it. We do not know that system. But at some point, we will be introduced to some who do know how to live in this system like this. And we have to be mindful, because moving forward at some point in the future, we're going to come to a wall where 1 or 2 or 3 nations control all the wealth. It's inevitable. And then what do we do? Do we do this whole thing all over again? Does the rest of the world go to war with these countries that control all the wealth and get it back so that they can survive? What does that look like? If we don't use money and we've evolved out of the monetary system, then this is never an issue, because now everybody has a right to live and to survive. It doesn't come down to money. It doesn't come down to money. It doesn't come down to anything but the fact that you are a human being with unalienable rights to exist in your pursuit of happiness. Wow, Star Trek world, wouldn't that be great? It says, I'm having all the Nasara Gasara hype, okay? I'm hearing all the Nasara Gasara hype, that no one will ever have to worry about money ever again as long as there's money. There will come a point where we will have to worry about it. It's inevitable, okay? It says it's inevitable. So I think in the short term, this is brilliant. This gives us time to all take a deep breath, to survive, to take care of our families, and to buy us time and figure out what the future looks like moving forward. And I do support it 100%, but it is not the end of the story moving forward. We have to figure out, what does the world look like when we've hit another currency wall, which is inevitable, which is why advanced star civilizations don't use money anymore. They've eliminated that issue, because what it does is it brings civilizations to a halt, to a stop, to a catastrophe in some cases, to wars amongst themselves. So many wars have been fought, so many human beings have died, so many children have been sacrificed, all because of the pursuit of money. It's evil, right? It's evil. I don't have the answers to these questions either. I do not, but these are legitimate questions. They're going to come up. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it will for sure in many grandchildren's or my great-grandchildren's lifetime, and this will come up. No currency system has lasted for more than 150 years. It says before it's changed, okay? And it's going to an asset-backed currency system is great. But what do you do when the assets are used up? What do you do when 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of the wealthiest countries now control all the assets, as they control all the wealth? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So whatever this is a short-term solution. This is not 1,000 years of peace, okay? What did I say? I've been saying I love Melissa Redpill. I love some of her information. She's a great lady, but biblically, like she goes by the Bible a lot, and so it's like, oh, we're gonna have 1,000 years of peace. No, we're gonna have peace for the rest of our lives, and not just for 1,000 years, because that's a revolving, that's a wheel coming back. You're coming back and you're doing the same thing. No, this is why this is huge, huge for humanity. We are moving up and out of that wheel. The wheel's gonna be broken. We are evolving up and out. Our lives will change forever. Okay. So Alex says this: there is no way a single currency system could ever go that long. So he says, when we are rebuilding our communities, when our municipalities collapse, because there's no fake money to pay them their fake salaries, when people quit and walk off the job because they're no longer getting paid, when our trash isn't being picked up because nobody has the money for fuel or nobody will work for free, however this is going to look like, and we just don't know yet. Can we expect the military to do this? Come around picking up our garbage? No, it's not going to happen. These are going to be local issues, small community issues, maybe even some of the bigger cities that we're all going to have to deal with. We have to start thinking this through. Food production. America used to be able to feed the world until farms became corporations. Then the soil got poisoned, the quality of food went to shit. He says they would not let certain areas of farms set 7 years to remineralize the soil. And then we started eating food that had no nutritional content in it whatsoever. I mean, when the box that the cereal comes in has more nutrition than the cereal, we have a problem, Houston. We really do. These are all things we have to think about, and I would love to get up here and once again tell you, hey, it's all love and roses. But we have some challenges. We have some real serious challenges that we have to start thinking about. And yes, I know we're going to get through it, but we're going to have to start working on it. We're going to have to start thinking about it, and we need to begin the conversation on how we're going to do these things. Whether you're here in America, Colorado, Wyoming, it doesn't matter, Texas, wherever it is, England, Putrum, I don't know. I don't remember what he said. Suffolk, wherever you are, Scotland, Ireland, we're going to have to learn to be self-sufficient. That means having land, and that's what I'm kind of looking for in the long run. Like, I want a piece of property. I want to be able to have my own garden and chickens and goats and maybe a rescue center. I mean, that's my dream. I need to be age regressed though, back into my 30s, so that I have enough energy to do those things. Holy moly. Like, there's another lady I watch on YouTube, and she's hilarious. She's called The Real Slim Sherry. And I've said this in another video before, but if you ever go look her up. If you're over 50, she talks about all the things that happen to you when you're over 50. Like, literally, when you stand up and everything in your body goes snap, crackle, pop, and one sneeze can put you in traction. I'm like, oh my God, it's hilarious. It's hilarious because she's so true. It's so true. You know, you get in your 50s, nobody tells you all the things that go wrong with your body is just starting to break down. And you're like, I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. I can't. I'm in pain. She's funny. He says, so we are not beholden to someone else in some other part of the world for what it is that we need daily in order to survive. These are things we have to do. The more self-sufficient we are, the freer we will always be, because we don't have someone hanging around something over our head. It says, well, I'll give you this, but this is what you need to do for me, okay? It has nothing to do with a fair exchange. It's a manipulation, a coercion, okay? And I would love to believe that all of humanity moving forward are going to be 100% earnest individuals. He says it's not likely. Okay, that's what I keep saying. Like, I don't know. There has to be some kind of consciousness change for everyone in the world to be on the same page, because you're gonna have these assholes. I don't know how that vibration is gonna work. How you have a lower vibration and a higher vibration of humanity. It just doesn't seem plausible to me. He says the medical system simply cannot be trusted unless it's emergency medicine. If it's emergency medicine, Western medicine tends to be really, really great and excel in that arena. But extended care services, he said, wow. When we recreate and we rebuild our state governments, one of the things we absolutely must do is remove all exemptions from the medical system and from the food production systems. The animal husbandry systems, we remove all exemptions on the expectation that the food and the care that they're giving us is absolutely their very, very best effort. No cutting corners. We're still using currency. We pay that extra, but we know the food we're getting is healthy, it's organic, and it's nutritious. That the car parts we're getting will last, that the tires we're getting are good, that the school books and the education that our children are using, whether in homeschooling or whatever's going on, however that structure comes about, is up to date and it is genuine and authentic way of learning and teaching. But you have to be in control of that at a state level, okay? That's realistic. At a state level, and that means everybody has to be involved and there needs to be a turnover. Every 2 terms of our state senate and our state representatives, and if we have a full-fledged constitutional republic again, our elected representatives. He says, I also think that it's imperative that our elected representatives to the federal government be here in our local communities. I absolutely agree. And in our states, they don't go shipping their asses off to DC or wherever it's going to be, Austin, Texas, or Dallas, wherever the new capital's going to be, Omaha, Nebraska, or Denver. They don't all come here and ship their asses here so they can hide from their constituents and make deals. No, 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 no. Right. It's going to be like if you watch the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson. Love that movie. One of my favorite. Everybody lives on their own piece of property, plantation, whatever. They grow their food, they do it all themselves. But when it comes time to governmental, when things need to be talked about, like they all come into town, they all convene in a council and they all talk about it. That is what we need to go back to. Okay. He says they belong in their own states so that they can be responsible to their constituencies. Absolutely. It's kind of like it's the same thing when you work in retail. We complain all the time that these people that are in the corporate system, if they're in the corporate building, okay, they're in the corporate side, the things they have us do in the stores, I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, who the fuck is running this? Who's doing marketing? Who is doing it? Like, what the hell? They have no fucking clue. No clue how to run things in a store. They don't, because they're not in the store. So they have no idea how it works. They just shove out all these, oh, here, do this. Here, we're going to change this. Here, we're going to, and then you're like, what the fuck? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? It's the same thing. These representatives need to be in the state, in the communities they are in, so they see and they live there every day. They see what's going on with everybody. That's what needs to happen. So their constituents can come to them and say, look, we have an issue in this community. What can you do to help us? What is it that we need? What resources can you give us to solve these issues? And he's right there, or she's right there in front and center to deal with the issues and knows what the issue is. I mean, actually knows. Doesn't know about it, but knows what the issue is, because then they can get in the car and go to that community themselves and see it and know it for a fact. These are all things we have to start thinking about, ladies and gentlemen, because whether it's the next 30 days or the next 45 days, it's the next like 6 months, when the EBS starts and we move into martial law, you are not going to want to be in martial law forever. He says you're not going to want to be, because that's not freedom. He says that's not freedom, that's a police state. So if you are really genuinely serious about wanting freedom, then we the people have got to step up, and we have got to create that freedom once again for ourselves. We have to claim it, we have to intend it, and we have to take it, and we have to preserve it, not only for ourselves, but for future prosperity, just like the Declaration of Independence says. He says we're very, very close, and I know that there's all kinds of information out there. Many talking heads, many truthers, many information sharers. He says, you know, it's overwhelming how much information is out there, but you do know what you resonate to. You do. You know what feels right, and that's the information you should follow. What feels right to you. And that doesn't mean that information is always going to resonate with you. There will come a point where you outgrow that resonance and then you're drawn to something else. Absolutely, that's happened to me a lot. To another area to explore, to educate yourself. He says, you know, one of the things about our founding fathers and mothers was that they all had a very well-rounded education. They knew reading, they knew history, they knew geography, they knew science, they knew math, they knew farming, they knew husbandry, they knew all the things that they needed to know in order to sustain a sovereign life. We didn't have grocery stores. They didn't have Walgreens or Albertsons. None of that existed. And if that continues to exist, in other words, if we have these huge supply chains, then what we must adamantly insist upon is that that food we're buying is the genuine article. It is food. It is not a chemical composition of we don't know what the fuck it is, like chicken McNuggets. He says there's shit in there they can't even identify. Almost beef. He says there's stuff in there they can't even identify. Why are we eating it? He says, you know, almost beef. He says, uh, what, 28, 29 ingredients in it? He says some of it we can't even identify. He says beef has one. He says beef. He says we have to rethink this, ladies and gentlemen. We have to rethink what we're doing, and moving forward, we have to insist together as we the people. We have to insist that if you're going to be a business and provide a service, you better provide the service, and it better be the genuine article, or move on. Okay? We can't do this anymore. We can't keep poisoning ourselves for convenience. He says it's crazy. It's crazy. Look at where we are. Look at the wall we've hit. He says our own government that we created has turned on us. Our own government, which we created, conspired with the pharmaceutical company industry to poison us. Our own government, which we created, turned us into assets and employees of them. Not okay. It is absolutely not okay. And we have to put our foot down and say never, ever again. And in doing that, it means being sure. To make sure that this doesn't happen again, we have to be involved in everything. We have to become proctologists, he says. Probably not a very good example, he laughs, but we have to become proctologists to make sure no matter whatever they're up to, we know about it. Nothing they're up to or doing is hidden from us. Nothing. So it can't get out of hand. Okay? Says, I'm nervous about the digital currency thing. I am. I understand the need for it, but also at the same time, I think we need hard currency in the hands of people to use every day. Absolutely. Allowing any private platform to become a currency and even discuss it becoming the world's reserve currency And it wouldn't matter whether it was the United States, it wouldn't matter if Ripple was from Russia, wouldn't matter if Ripple was from China or from South America or Africa. He says, I wouldn't care what happens when you put all this power into the hands of a few. It gets abused. It gets abused. Says, okay, paradigms of space. We have a white hat space force. We've had a dark hat space force. I don't know how much of it still exists. And then there is the galactics, who are mostly neutral, but there's always that percentage that isn't neutral. We, the people on this planet, have got to know everything about our Space Force, or Solar Warden and Safari, the dark side Space Force. We need to know everything, and we should insist that we know everything. And moving forward, we need to be aware of what they've been doing, what programs they have, what outposts they've had, other places where we have colonized. We, the people, need to know everything. We, the people, need to be in control of their funding, and I realize that right now, whether you are a white hat or a dark hat, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Collier? He says, ladies and gentlemen, this is our heritage. This is our future. This is our energy that we are creating and putting forth. Off the earth, off world, what they do represents us, regardless of what side they're on. What they do represents us. It's an extension of who we are. And if they're not acting the way we think they should be, we should have the right to call them on it. If we're going to be a free society and an open society, he says, God damn it, open up all the doors and all the windows and let the wind come in. Let the sunlight and the wind come in and let us know everything. Let us know everything. Enough of this bullshit, he says. Enough of this bullshit. There cannot be any more Mauis ever again. And somebody better step up immediately and tell us where the kids are. And I mean immediately. Where are the kids? This is just unconscionable. Unconscious. Oh my God. Unconscionable. This has reached the level of just what the fuck is happening here? Who do these people think they are? He says, you know, and why do they feel they can do this? That's the other side of this. What has our behavior done, or our lack of interest or behavior gave them the assurance that they could act this way towards us? These are all things that we have to look at, and it isn't going to be easy because it's not easy. You know, some of this we have to look at and own and take responsibility for, because these people think that they can do what they did. It's not okay. Are we going to come together as a humanity, or are we not? And if the answer is a resounding yes, then we have to move forward together. We have to watch each other's backs. We have to protect each other if we are going to remain free. If we're not going to do that, then what do you want to do? What is it that you want to create going forward? Do you just want to live under martial law? Is that it? Are we going to be lazy that we're giving up? That's what we want? What is it that we want? He says, you know, we have to begin this process because the fourth density is not exactly like third density. As we move up, we are going to have to adopt and step into self-responsibility in order to fit in order to be responsible, to be successful. We're going to have to do all these things. It says, anyway, so we might as well start here right now instead of waiting and waiting and waiting, because the clock's ticking. The clock is ticking, and all we own is right now, this minute. You no longer own the past. You no longer own the future because it's not here yet. You can see it, but you're not there. You're here. This is what you have. This is where you are. Okay? It says, let's do questions, please. First question, Alex, I've been hearing concerns over the FEMA or EBS test that is scheduled for October 4th. We know nothing happened, but I'm still reading this, and that we should be turning our phones off to safeguard against any negative impacts. Alex says, well, I think the trust in FEMA is justified. I really do. They petitioned or took funding, got funding. Petition. They took funding, got funding, petitioned for funding, lobbied for funding to build FEMA camps to put American citizens in. So, yeah, your distrust and concern is absolutely justified. Do I think that the EBS is going to do something horribly? There are many rumors of everything out there. It says it's really difficult to keep up with all of it. And I'm going to say this again, you know the 5G towers are not on. I don't care what your phone says, the towers themselves, the 5G part is not on because we'd all be dead, he said. We'd all have been fried already. Had they been on, so they're not on. It says, you know, it's interesting, the only ones not talking are the white hats, and the reason they're not talking is because they are not going to telegraph what their moves are going to be, because this is war. All right, we are at war. We already have a civil war going on inside the United States. Okay, you all need to understand that we're already in a civil war. So they're not going to telegraph most of this nonsense that brings up fear. Is coming from the other side, because what is their strongest tool? Make you afraid, so you will give up your rights, that you will surrender your sovereignty, and you will give up your ability to make your own decisions to some higher authority that only wants one thing from you, your soul. Nope. That's all they want is your soul. He says, don't give it to them. Don't give it to them. He says, I mean, after everything that we're seeing come out, after all the shifts and changes that are occurring, he just laughs and he says, you really don't think we're winning still? He says, I mean, they said it would get worse before it got better. We would reach that point where we're still not there. As bad as this is, it may just get a little bit worse because it is a day by day getting a little bit more interesting. But what it is you're beginning to see more and more and more through disclosure, through awareness of information, just how bad it's been for a very, very long time. What's really happening here is that your awareness of how screwed up it is becoming obvious to you now, everywhere you look, because you're aware of it, because you're looking for it, because we were all oblivious to it. Most of us were oblivious to it. There were others who saw it for decades, but nobody was listening. There were conspiracy theories. They were nut jobs, fruitcakes, yada, yada, yada. Now that we're all beginning to see these things in everyday life, because we are now consciously aware of it, we have all come to realize that we weren't conspiracy nuts. They were spoiler alert specialists, okay? And they were trying to tell you in advance what was going to happen, what was coming. Now you are a spoiler alert specialist because you're seeing it yourself. And many, many others here on the broadcast or elsewhere, those of you who are awake, you're now a spoiler alert specialist. And you can put that on your resumes, okay? And he laughs. He says, when you run for office, okay, that's actually creds now. He says, that actually means you have some creds. So there is just so much nonsense out there. Next question. Hello, Alex. Could you please tell us, when was the last time you spoke with Mornay or any other Andromedans? If you have recently done so, could you describe in detail how was it and what information, if any, have they told you? Also, what do you think of people saying Trump and even Biden might be killed and there's not going to be a 2024 election? Thank you. And Alex says, regarding Biden, Biden's already dead, okay? The real Biden's already dead. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I don't know who this guy is, okay, but he's just a puppeteer. That's all he is. So they got to figure out how to remove him from the public limelight so he can go back to his real life, okay? Give him his check for playing an idiot, and so he can go on and have his life. Regarding Trump, there have been many assassination attempts already. Do I think they're going to shoot him, kill him, assassinate him? No, I do not. He says, I don't think that's going to happen because he doesn't have Secret Service protection. He has U.S. Marines and Navy SEALs protecting him. The best there is, okay? The best there is. And regarding Mornay, he says, that's my own private business. Next question, Alex. What are the White Hats' mitigation efforts to the omnipresence of nanotech in the air, food, water, medications, and nutraceuticals? And Alex says, this is a process that's been ongoing for a very, very long time. And is my understanding, there is technology on planet and off-world that will at some point be implemented to not only disable and turn off this process, but also there will be technology that could take and would remove these things from our bodies completely. When and how that is being implemented, he says, I couldn't honestly tell you, but what has to stop is the spreading of this technology, and I can't imagine they would do it until they stop this. But right now, what they're trying to do is put an end to the civil war that we have ongoing with the deep state. And it isn't just in the United States. This is every country having various degrees of civil war within their intelligence operations in each country. Every country has been compromised. Darkseid knew very well what to do, so we have to undo it. And then we have to make things right. And the only way humanity can make things right is for humanity to know everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But first we have to eliminate the threat to humanity by these animals. Next question. You mentioned in a previous webinar that the Knights Templar came to North America with gold traveling to Nova Scotia. Is there a connection between this and the mysterious money pit at Oak Island? Love Oak Island. I used to watch that all the time. And then we left. We got rid of our cable. And it's kind of hard to find on other platforms. But Alex says, I follow that. He says, there were many different stashes across the United States on the eastern seaboard. Many different stashes going all the way up to Canada and even Greenland. He says, there's all this talk about the Templars going dark and satanic. And I keep coming back to this question. If they went dark, why didn't they come back over here and get all their loot and then take it back to the Vatican? Why is it that they chose to keep it hidden and safe out of the Vatican's hands? Because they knew the truth. They weren't bad. They weren't. They absolutely were adamant about not joining the Vatican, and in fact, they were blackmailing the Vatican. The Templars were. I think what we're going to learn is that the Vatican created their own Templars that were part of the church, part of some other organization pretending to be Templars, to do all these things, to destroy the reputation of the Templars. Because if you can't beat them, you destroy them. And if you're going to, the only way to beat them is you have to discredit them first. And they're still doing that today. That's typically how it works, is that you discredit them so that when it comes to their destruction, nobody cares. There's so much history, but again, let's just talk about that. Oak Island is a very interesting, very, very interesting place. Look at the things they have found there. They found coins, jewelry, other metals that go back to 25 BC on Oak Island. He says, so all this shit
Columbus discovered America is absolute rubbish. Of course it's rubbish. It says they all knew what the world looked like. The ancients, they all knew the pyramids of Giza is built exactly dead center of the entire world's landmass. The only way you would know to put it there is if you had aerial logistics of the planet itself in all the land masses. And he laughs. He says, if you take it apart, every single one of their stories falls apart of what our history is. So we'll find out soon enough. He says, there's no way I believe all the Templars were dark. It makes absolutely no sense. They wouldn't have taken everything and hid it and took it away from the church, specifically the church. They did not want the church to have it. And what would happen if we were to find out that the house of Magdala, Mary Magdalene and her offspring, that it's true about the Holy Grail, that specific bloodline, and you have to think about this because that's what the Templars were trying to protect. So we're told was that bloodline. So let's take a look at the body on the Shroud of Turin. It has the Y chromosome, but not the X chromosome. He said, oh no, I have that backwards. It has the female chromosome, but not the male chromosome. And yet it's a male child. Okay, it's a male child. So if that man was married and had offspring, that's a very, very different bloodline than all the rest of us on the planet. Yes, indeed. He says, yes, indeed. But hopefully we'll know all of that relatively soon. Hopefully we'll know all of that. Let's see. Is this the last question? Sorry, this is a long one, guys. Okay. What language do the Andromedan humans speak? Please utter some sentences or words in their language. And Alex says the language is holographic. It's symbols. When they speak to me, they speak in English because that's my language. I could never understand their language because it's fifth density holographs. I can't even draw them because anything I could do would only be a 3D model. It wouldn't be 5D. Plus, a lot of their symbols, when they talk, they'll rotate. He says, okay, I can see them in my head. They'll rotate or they will flip or they will spin, forming something completely different. See, this is good questions because I've never heard him talk about this in 10 plus years. Looks completely different than what it looks like standing still. He says it's very, very different and it's very complicated to try to explain. It's almost as if every single letter or word is a spinning anagram. It looks one way standing still, but then when it's in movement, creating the vibration of what it is they're trying to express, it looks like something completely different, if that makes any sense. So with me, they have to use the crayons. He says, okay, they have to use the crayons. And then JP, one of the other hosts, he says, does Mornay speak with a perfect American accent or English accent, or does he sound like he's foreign or something like that? And Alex says, yes, he does speak like he's foreign, but it's not anything here. He says, it's very, very different. I can't even imitate it. He says, I've tried. It's deep. He says, it almost has a hoarseness quality to it. And when he pronounces his words, it comes from his lower abdomen. You just know it because you can see the energy coming up from him and it comes out his mouth. I don't know how to explain it. He says, but what's interesting is that as he's saying the words, he's also telepathically sending me information. So it's not one or the other, it's always both. He says they got impatient with me because I was so focused on the pictures from the telepathy that I wasn't at all paying attention to what he was actually voicing. So after a while, he knew I wasn't paying attention to the voice and he would call me on it. And he would say, did you hear what I said? And they're telepathic and authentic. He says, you can't bullshit. He says, and he already knew the answer. So he'd have to repeat himself again. And he says that you would see the same things telepathically, but I focused instead on his words because their holographic language is absolutely fascinating. He says it's just fascinating. Seeing the change in the words and how it moves is it's almost like music, and it changes colors. And there's colors as letters and anagrams come together to form a sentence. He says, I guess it would be there's a color and there's these bursts of colors that come out and spread out like this. And they'll change. And he says it's fucking remarkable. It's fucking remarkable. He says it's absolutely remarkable. And I don't know how to explain it to you other than what I just did, and I'm not doing it justice at all. Isn't that funny? See, I've always said Melania, she's got to be from somewhere else, because even if she's from Romania, if she's been in this country, if you're from another country and you live in a different country for 20 plus years, you're going to lose that accent, okay? And you're going to speak a little bit more under that country's accent. But when you listen to her speak, it's almost like she's, yeah, you can tell, like she's not from here. She's she's not. Um, okay. Okay, next question. Alex, thanks a lot for all your great work you and your friends are doing. Do you have any idea if the Black League is still active and if they have now another name? He says, yes, they're called the Galactic Federation. And he just laughs. And he says, there's a few of us up there. He says, they could be called the Galactic Alliance. I don't know. He says, there's so many councils. You need a scorecard at this point. He says, but yeah, they're up there. He says, there's freedom fighters everywhere. There are just some of us, regardless of age, regardless of spirit, regardless of the form we're in, we just can't stand bullies. We just can't stand it, and we're simply not going to tolerate it on any level or any dimension. And we're going to fight them. And that's the role we play. That's the role we like. That's our spot. That's our sweet space. He says that's where we fit in. He says, and it's a tough road to hoe. Sometimes you have to incarnate over and over and over again into the same situation, but you do it because you're committed to the outcome, because you realize if you can eliminate this threat, then everybody has an opportunity to become free, to be free. And freedom is worth the cost. It is. And once you have it, it's on you to keep it. It's on you to revere it. It's on you to teach others to be free. The ability to know thyself and to be free, to experience what it is you want to create for yourself. He says, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that Source could have given us, is that opportunity to be, to cherish, to explore. And some of us continuously live those lives over and over and over again, just in different places. Okay, he says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. For those of you who've sent me a donation, God bless you all with my heart. He said, I'm so appreciative. I so appreciate you. You didn't know what was going on with me, and you have no idea how I've appreciated that. He says, I still don't have access to my funds until my cards come. So it's been an interesting week. And he says, and guys, we'll get through this. We will. But you can't get overwhelmed. Whether it's my life or your life, if you're overwhelmed, then you got to take a step back and find one thing that you can fix. Just start with that one thing, okay? Simple. Don't try to do it all at once. Just fix one thing, and when you fix that, then go to another thing, and then another, and then another. And as you continue to solve these problems, you build some self-confidence, and it gets easier and easier and easier, because these things are not overwhelming, because they're already out of the way. That's what you have to do, is take them one at a time and solve them until you get to the last one, which is usually the big one. And then what you'll find out, because all these others are done and out of the way, then it's not as big of an issue as you thought. And you'll have a whole lot of clarity as how to deal with it, because you got rid of all the little stuff up front. You can do this. I know you can do this because you've done this before in other lifetimes, in other worlds. Don't lose faith in yourself. There you go. So, thank you so much for listening. I love you all. You are my soul family. I appreciate all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Um, my email is below. If you have questions, you can email me. Please support Alex, alexcollier.org, or his brighteon.com on his webinars every Friday. Yeah, lots of stuff going on. We're 2 weeks out from the eclipse happening, and they're making a big to do about and getting prepared and all this stuff. And honestly, yeah, I'm kind of like, I bet you nothing will happen. Nothing's going to happen. If something does happen, it's going to be like a solar flare at the same time, or they're going to claim it's a solar flare and it's going to like take all the, it's going to be like blackout. It's going to take everything out. Blame it on nature, right? Or, yeah, nothing's going to happen. Everything will be fine. But then, like, I was listening to David Nino Rodriguez, and he was talking about this with the ghost, and he was saying nothing's going to happen. He feels, and that maybe a month or two away, then something's going to happen because all these things that keep building up and building up. Oh, something's going to happen. Be prepared. And like Y2K, nothing happened. They're saying with this, oh, be prepared, and then nothing's going to happen. So people are going to be not prepared, and they're going to be like, they're just crying wolf. And then something big's going to happen. But I didn't realize too, like that whole path of where it's going is also where the New Madrid fault is. Maybe they're going to cause a really big earthquake. I don't know. Who knows? None of us know what's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm at this point in my life where it's like I can't worry about things. Like I need to start. I've been 4 years of not really moving forward. And now that like this life thing has happened where like we can't stay here anymore, we've got to move where we want to. Um, like that's the only part that's moving me forward. I can't sit still anymore. I can't remain stagnant because this whole town we live in is stagnant and nothing is growing and nothing is happening and it's very corrupt. And it's time to move on. It's time to start moving on. As painful as it is, it's very painful some days. Very painful. Um, but we have to continue to move forward and just take baby steps every day, every day, every day. And I still just can't focus on the overwhelming situations anymore like I used to. I used to really get stressed out and overwhelmed. And the older maybe it's just because the older I've gotten, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'll make it. We'll make it through it. Why worry about it? Who cares? I don't know. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate all of you. And hopefully the next webinar might have some good news. Don't know. But I love all of you. Stay safe, stay prepared, stay grounded. Okay? If you have feelings and you just want to cry, just cry and let it out. Just scream, let it out. Let everything out. Okay? Go in nature, put your feet in the grass, hug a tree, do whatever, hug your pets, do whatever you need to do. Okay? But I'm with you. Thank you for being my extended family. I love all of you so much. I wish I could give all of you a hug. And someday we'll all meet. We'll have a big old party. So, mwah. Thank you so much. I will see you next time. Bye.